In the past 6 videos, we've gone over 6 alternatives to first past the post. While we've discussed how these systems work, we have not discussed how these systems compare to each other. I have done this for 2 reasons. First, I wanted to make sure that all of the arguments for and against these systems were in one place, so that people would have access to all of the information at the same time. Second, I wanted the explanation videos to be as unbiased as possible, and I wanted to make you aware of my biases before we cover the arguments. So, what are my biases? My preferred system is star-PR, the last system we covered. This is my preferred system because I have a strong preference for quota-based proportionally representative voting systems, and a preference for utilitarian voting systems over majoritarian voting systems. With this in mind, here are the common arguments for and against these different voting systems. First, single winner elections. Instant runoff voting, or IRV's, main advantage is its momentum. It is the system with the most presence in the United States, being used in Alaska, Maine, New York City, etc. The main disadvantage is the fact that it can suffer from monotonicity failure. That is to say, there are some situations where rating your favorite candidate lower than a less favored candidate can improve the result. Monotonicity failure is not just theoretical. It has happened in real elections, notably the 2009 Burlington, Vermont mayoral election and the 2022 Alaska at-large congressional district special election. Another key disadvantage of instant runoff voting is its advocacy organization, Fair Vote. I should clarify for any Canadian listeners that Fair Vote Canada and the Fair Vote that operates in the United States are 2 very different and unrelated organizations. Fair Vote Canada does good work as far as I can tell. However, the US organization is a different matter. To many in the wider voting reform community, Fair Vote comes off as an unnecessarily antagonistic institution. The Center for Election Science and the Equal Vote Coalition, the advocacy groups for approval and star voting in the United States, respectively, provide critiques for voting systems and technical criteria, but in general they do not attack other voting systems outright, especially when another system makes it to a ballot referendum. Fair Vote has no such qualms, as seen in Seattle, where approval voting advocates successfully got approval voting on the ballot, but the city council put IRV on the ballot as well as a competing initiative. IRV won that initiative. The biggest issue, however, is Fair Vote's representation of a technical criterion known as later no harm. Fair Vote describes this criterion as follows. Namely, under IRV and STV, a vote for your second choice cannot hurt the chances your first choice will be elected. A vote for your third choice does not hurt the chances of your first or second choice, and so on. This is true. If a system satisfies later no harm, then listing a second favorite candidate on your ballot cannot hurt your favorite candidate. But it can hurt you. Consider this example. Candidates Bob, Charlie, and Daisy are in a dead heat, with Daisy just in front of Charlie and Charlie just in front of Bob. Your friend and favorite candidate, Alice, stands no chance of winning the election. In fact, the only 2 people planning on voting for Alice first are you and Alice herself. Your true preferences are Alice before Bob, Bob before Charlie, and Charlie before Daisy. What ballot do you submit? Alice first and Bob second, or just Alice first? If Alice first is the ballot submitted, then Alice is eliminated, the ballots are transferred to no one, as they are exhausted, Bob is eliminated, Bob's votes transfer, and Charlie is elected. If Alice first, Bob second is the ballot submitted, then Alice is eliminated, the ballots transferred to Bob, Charlie is eliminated, Charlie's votes transfer, and Daisy wins in a landslide. By listing your second favorite candidate, you didn't hurt Alice's chances of being elected, that's true, but you did get a worse outcome for yourself. Fair Vote fails to mention this in its material, and in some instances seems to imply that later no harm cannot hurt voters, without outright saying it. Approval voting's main advantage is that it is simple, dead simple. It's simple for electronic ballot counting machines, as they do not need to accept any new types of ballots. It is also simple for people to fill out, as it is the same process as first past the post. The main disadvantage is that it is deceptively simple. Take the example from the first video. Suppose there are 3 candidates, Alice, Bob, and Charlie. Vicky prefers Alice to Bob and Bob to Charlie. Who should Vicky vote for? Under approval voting, Vicky should obviously vote for Alice and not for Charlie. But what about Bob? If she believes Bob and Charlie are the frontrunners, she should also approve of Bob. But if she thinks Alice is one of the frontrunners, then she should not approve of Bob. As discussed in the first video, this strategic voting can occur in all voting systems. However, for approval voting, this decision also occurs for honest votes. The voter must decide what their approval threshold is, between what 2 candidates do they approve of the first and not of the second. Even for 3 candidates, this is a massive increase in cognitive load, the amount of work a voter needs to do to come to a decision. You may have heard of analysis paralysis or decision fatigue before. Those terms refer to this problem. Star and score-based systems in general might alleviate this by allowing for partial votes. In Star, a 5 is equivalent to an approval, and a 0 is equivalent to a disapproval. While in approval voting, those are the only 2 options, in Star, the voter can select intermediate options. I say might alleviate this because there does not appear to have been a study actually testing this. I can say that it personally reduces my cognitive load, and the creators of Star reference a study that suggests cognitive load increases only after 7 or more choices are present in a study, but your mileage may vary. Another advantage of Star is how the rating system can handle both few and many candidates. If there are 3 candidates, a voter might think their favorite and second favorite candidates are similar, or it could be that their second favorite candidate is much closer to their least favorite candidate. With IRV, these 2 situations are expressed in the same way, despite being very different to the voter. With approval, you have the issue described previously. Where do you set the threshold? With Star, the first situation is 540, while the second situation is 510. With 10 or more candidates, it can be difficult to separate the 5th favorite from the 6th favorite. As most implementations of IRV do not allow ties, voters are forced to find the candidate that is slightly better than the other. Star simply allows both to receive the same rating, if there is truly little difference. This can be a disadvantage in some cases, however. If there are 7 or more candidates and a voter truly feels distinctly about all of them, that voter will have to compromise in Star voting and assign 2 candidates the same rating. But as discussed above, this seems like it's a rare situation. Star also has the disadvantage of experiencing monotonicity failure, like IRV. This is because what candidates make it to the runoff round can produce edge cases. Many of the technical criteria Star fails are met either by the first round or both rounds separately, but the interaction between the 2 rounds produces odd behavior. Unlike IRV, Star has never seen monotonicity of failure occur in real-world data. However, this is because of Star's main disadvantage. There is no real-world data. No jurisdiction currently uses Star. Even approval voting is used in a handful of cities like St. Louis. Star has almost made it to a ballot referendum, but is currently stuck in adjudication due to signatures being rejected under since-ruled unconstitutional voter disenfranchisement. For multi-winner elections, the advantages and disadvantages with the previous 3 systems' multi-winner equivalents are largely the same. STV has momentum in real-world data, but is also subject to monotonicity failure. SPAV has the same advantages and disadvantages of approval voting, but it also suffers from monotonicity failure because multi-winner systems have all new fun and exciting ways to suffer from monotonicity failure compared to single-winner systems. As for Star PR, it is the most flexible in terms of allowing voters to distinguish large and small differences in preference, but it is so new that we don't even know if it has monotonicity failure. It almost surely does, though. What all 3 of STV, SPAV, and Star PR have over their single-winner counterparts, though, is proportional representation. On the district level, voters in the minority party in most uncompetitive districts would finally have representation. Even for competitive districts, voters would always have a representative to talk to instead of it flip-flopping every 2 years. On the legislature level, the proportion of seats a party earns is much closer to the proportion of votes that party receives than a single winner system could ever reach. If, after watching this series, you want to advocate for STAR or STAR PR voting, you can support them at www.starvoting.org. If you support approval voting or SPAV, you can find like-minded people at electionscience.org. Finally, if you support IRV and STV, the best place to donate is still fairvote.org. But let's say you're still unsure of what voting system to advocate for, yet you still want to improve democracy. Or maybe you're already advocating for voting system reform and want to support additional reforms. Here are 2 other related reforms that you might be interested in. Multi-seat districts are required for proportionally representative voting systems to function. But currently, the Uniform Congressional District Act outlaws multi-seat districts. The reason for this is that multi-seat districts can be a double-edged sword. While we have talked about PR voting systems, another way to elect multiple people in one district is by using block voting systems. For example, plurality-at-large is a block system used in many cities, such as Ames, Iowa. Unfortunately, block voting systems lead to landslides for one party, disenfranchise political and racial minorities, and are the reason why multi-seat districts were banned for U.S. House elections in the first place. So, the reintroduction of multi-seat districts would need language mandating the use of PR voting systems. There isn't a specific organization advocating on just this issue, but Fix Our House is advocating for proportional representation in general. You can find them at www.fixourhouse.org. Increasing the size of the House of Representatives, or uncapping the House, is another common reform. The argument is that one representative cannot adequately represent 750,000 people, and that 435 representatives isn't some magic number from the Constitution. Rather, it's from the same law that legalized gerrymandering. If you wish to uncap the House, you can find like-minded people at www.reddit.com/r/uncapthehouse. This marks the end of For a Better Vote. Thank you for taking the time to watch this entire series, and I hope that you will continue to be interested in improving democracy.